Hello, everyone. I don't know if you can see, but I have a cat in my arms. Oh, hello, Lynx. Part of me is like, should I just record this entire thing with him in my arms? He's shy. He's shy. Okay, Lynx, I'm gonna have to put you down. I love you so much. I don't think that this is gonna work. Lynx, okay, bye. Bye. Okay. All right, let's try that one again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Name One Player podcast. I'm your host, Nicole. Thank you to every single person for hitting play today, regardless of where you are listening. I am so grateful for you, so appreciative. I am just so happy that you're here with us today. Thank you so much. Wherever you are listening, I would absolutely love it if you hit subscribe, if you hit like, if you hit rate. I know each platform has its own little different thing, but I would absolutely love it if you could just take the time and do that. I've said the last few episodes, you can rate it 5 stars if you love it, but it is a free country. And I'm actually now realizing that maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm just trying to think. Again, that's like a very American thing. And no, I don't think I have any listeners in countries that aren't free countries. So anyways, no, just like 5 stars if you like it. If you don't, like whatever you want to like. It's your own life, and I want you to be able to express yourself in the way that you want to. Hopefully that's not liking my podcast and giving it a 1-star review. That would really suck. But if that's how you feel, if you are a hater of the Name One Player podcast, then I feel kind of bad for you that you're listening. You should find something better to do with your time. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. Obviously, you don't hate the show. Obviously, you're not a hater. Maybe you are a hater. Maybe, again, you're hate listening. And if that's the case, thank you for the listen. And if you are a new listener, welcome to the Name One Player podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I definitely recommend that you check out all the rest of the episodes. I personally think that they're all really incredible, and regardless of what sport you like, regardless of what team you like, there's probably something for you. We've done quite a few episodes now. This is episode 17, and we're starting to really get into it all. We're getting that mixed bag going. I do still have a lot of football episodes. I'm not gonna lie about that. And today we're kind of doing something new, but also not. Actually, no, definitely we're doing something new. Today is our very first college football episode, and I am so excited because we have Joy on here today. Daily Joy on TikTok. You've probably seen her. Her TikToks about college football are just incredible, and once I saw her, I was like, I need this girl on the Name One Player podcast to, one, teach me about college football, because anybody who doesn't know, I'm Canadian, and there definitely are a lot of college football lovers in Canada, but it's not something that's really that big. Our college makeup in Canada is quite a bit different. Like the college experience, we don't even call it college. We call it university. Like college in Canada is a different thing, really. So it's just not really the same vibe. So I'm so excited to have Joy on with us today, where we can just talk all about college football, and she can give me a little bit of information. I can learn a little bit more about her love, her passion for it, and really the entire country's love for it. I recently looked at my analytics, my audience analytics, and for a long time, it was mainly UK listeners and Canadian listeners. I imagine my friends who lived in London or wherever in the UK and Canada. But now my audience is primarily American. So, hello. Hello to the Americans listening to the Name One Player podcast. I'm Canadian. I'm from Vancouver. Anybody who is new here, I used to live in Europe, actually. Well, because I can't ever get through an intro without talking about something completely unrelated. I used to live in Europe. Funny little story here, because I don't know if you hear my voice. I'm a little congested. My throat's a little bit sore. I have some sort of cold, and I feel like I've had it for a few weeks now. And when I lived in London, around this time last year, I got so so sick. I was taking the tube to work every single day. It kind of seemed like the entire city of London, all 9 million people in it, were also quite sick. Not to hate on London, okay? Not to hate on London, that's not what I'm doing. I actually do really love London. A piece of my heart will forever be there. But the personal hygiene there is a little bit different in terms of, the spreading of germs. I think I was maybe 5 years old when I learned to cough into my elbow. Like, I was very young. I remember learning this in kindergarten, grade 1. London, they're not really doing that. They're coughing directly into their hands and then grabbing onto the handrail poles on the tube. And it's like, you're packed, literally. If you're taking the tube during rush hour, you're literally back to back with people, so it's kind of impossible to avoid the germs there. And the germs, when I moved there, they told me, girl, you are gonna learn today what it's like to live in London, okay? Your little Canadian immune system is going to adapt today. And I ended up getting a sinus infection, and I swear it does have relevance to today, okay? Just bear with me. Got a sinus infection, didn't do anything about it because I didn't know how to get a doctor, which looking back, crazy. I was 28 years old in London and I didn't know how to find a doctor. It's not that hard. If anybody needs help in London, let me know. I've been through it. But I just ignored it. I just ignored the sinus infection. That then turned into 2 ear infections. And I remember, I was actually taking a shower this morning and I remember I thought back to when I was in London, just laying on the shower floor in so much pain. I remember I called my mom and I was like, I'm going to the hospital. And then I got on a bus to go to the hospital and then got on the wrong bus. So then I just sat on the bus. I was in so much pain. I was finding the will to carry on, and I'm just sitting on this bus. I remember I was supposed to get on the 37 and I got on the 35. So now I'm just roaming around central London, just sitting there, and I didn't even have the energy to pull out my phone and be like, hospital near me. I couldn't do it. That was a different level of illness. Anyways, flash forward to why this is relevant today. I ended up leaving London, and a big part of moving back home to Canada from London was because I had literal PTSD from that illness. When I would think about how sick I got, I was I would get goosebumps. I would get full body shivers. I was like, no, I can't put myself through that again. I just can't do it. So that was a big part of why I moved home, because I was I've never gotten that sick in Canada ever in my life. The germs there are different, I swear. So I moved home, and funnily enough, I have 2 ear infections, 1 in each ear, and I do think it is because of getting this cold and the sinuses kind of getting blocked, and then now apparently for me that just turns into getting ear infections. Thankfully it's not as bad. That's why I was thinking back when I was in the shower this morning. Thankfully I'm not in pain where I need to lay on the shower floor and just contemplate my entire life existence. We're not at that point, but we are a little bit congested. That's okay. God, how long was that story? I don't know. I'm gonna cut it out. We'll see if it even makes it to the final thing, but we'll cut out a lot of the unnecessaries of that. But anyways, what the hell did that have to do with anything? I guess just to say I'm sick. I don't know. Anyways, it is Sunday today. We are recording this on Sunday. And guess what? Guess what it is? It is the conference championship round of the NFL playoffs. We have our AFC game, Chiefs, Bills. We have our NFC game, Eagles, Commanders. I tweeted, I guess it was the wild card round, when I tweeted that obviously the Minnesota Vikings were losing. Also, I am now realizing too, this is a college football episode. We're not even going to talk about the NFL, but it wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be the Name on Player podcast if we didn't talk about the NFL a bit. Just a teeny tiny bit. The season is still on, okay? I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm still going to talk about the NFL when like in the middle of May. Well, no, probably, because then we got the draft. So I don't know, whatever. We have the championship games today, you guys. And we're going to find out who's going to the Super Bowl today, and I'm just so excited. But anyways, the whole point of that was I tweeted during the wild card round when I realized the Minnesota Vikings were not going further in the playoffs, and I was like, you know what, fine. Bills Commanders Super Bowl, that's what we're rooting for. And the dream is still alive. The dream is still alive. I put out a TikTok the other day. Actually, no, I guess it was just a little clip from the podcast that I'm sick of the Chiefs. I'm sick of them. I don't want to see them anymore. I barely even want to watch them today. But I only want to watch them today because I want to see the Bills win. And I just got a sinking, like, hurt in my heart at the thought of the Chiefs winning and me having to be like, yikes, that's tough. But we'll see. We'll see. By the time this episode comes out later this week, you may be laughing at me. Or you may be like, wow, Nicole, yay, the Bills won. And, I mean, honestly, I care a little bit less about the Eagles-Commanders game, which is kind of funny because, if anything, I normally would think that I want the Eagles to lose more than I want the Chiefs to lose, but this time, no. I'm sick of the Chiefs. I'm sick of the Chiefs. So yeah, Bills Commanders. Go Bills, go Commanders. Anyways, yeah, like I said, we have Daily Joy on with us today. I could not think of a better guest to kick off our very first college football episode. The college football season is in fact over, so this will be a little bit of a recap about the college football season, but I've done a little bit of research. College football is run way differently than the NFL. So if you are a Canadian listener or just anybody who doesn't really follow along with college football, I think you're really going to like this episode, just learning as much as I feel like I'm going to learn from Joy today. And if you do love college football, I think you'll also love this episode because Joy is so damn knowledgeable and so damn passionate about college football. So you can't help but love it. You know, you can't help but get excited hearing her talk about it. So I am already so excited, and I hope you're excited. Again, thank you for tuning in. I genuinely appreciate it. So I think I've rambled enough. I've talked about my 2 ear infections. My cat looks like he's about to jump up, so he's probably like, girl, just get on with the episode. Joy's waiting. She's waiting to talk to you. See, I don't know if you heard that. I don't know if that'll cut out with the background noise editor that I do, but he's like, girl, just Joy wants to come on. So without further ado, everybody please welcome Joy. All right, everyone. So we have Joy with us here today. Joy, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Literally so excited. I've been waiting on this.
Thank you so much for coming on. Yeah, because I mean, I found you on TikTok, and actually some of the people that I know who listen to the podcast commented on one of your TikToks.
Yeah.
It was just such a great connection that way. So I'm so happy to have you on. Thank you for joining us. This is my very first college football episode. The Name on Player podcast, we kind of cover everything. But after seeing your TikToks, I was like, no, we need Joy on here to talk about college football. So I'm so excited to have you. Thank you. So as I said when we were DMing, I'm Canadian. So essentially, college football is not really a huge thing in Canada. There are some people that follow it. The NFL is definitely way bigger.
Yeah.
But my first question to you is, explain the hype. Explain the hype for college football in America, because it seems like every single person is all in on it.
Yeah, I would say it does vary by like region.
Okay.
Of the country that you live in. So the South is primarily college football. Like we're dominated by college football. And a big reason for that is that logistically speaking, there are sometimes 1 or 2 major universities within a state, but there's not an NFL team within that state. So
that's such
for
a
instance,
good point.
like Louisiana does have LSU for college, and then they have the Saints for the NFL. But then 2 states over is Alabama and Mississippi. Both states have 2 major universities, but no NFL teams.
Wow, that's such a good point.
Same with like Oklahoma. Oklahoma doesn't have an NFL team. So like a lot of those states, like whereas like in the North, those states revolve around their NFL team, our states revolve around our universities.
That makes
so in the
much
South,
sense.
College football reigns supreme. It's if like that's why the Southeastern Conference and the SEC Like, that's
Yes.
why it's such a big deal. And people around the rest of the country tend to always be like, we're so sick of the SEC, like, we're sick of it. And I'm like, that's because y'all are also big Eagles fans or Patriots
Yeah.
fans, or like y'all all have your NFL teams that you have really strong allegiances to. Whereas down here, like, our allegiance is always to college. So that is why college football really reigns supreme in the South. And then I think because the SEC was so good for so long and like dominated the landscape, it kind of forced everyone else to level up. And so now those universities are getting to be just as passionate. And you had some like, I would like Nebraska is a diehard blue blood college football program,
Yeah.
but those are not normal in the northern part of the states. And so
Interesting.
it's all kind of come together because the SEC kind of almost made that happen, which anyone that is not an SEC fan is going to hate me for saying that.
Well, I have noticed going through your TikToks, that seems to actually be a major topic there about the SEC, and then you got a lot of people commenting saying that the SEC ain't shit, and you got you coming back and being like,
Yes.
I don't know.
I mean, I don't know how you can say that this SEC isn't shit when they have won 14 of the last 20 national championships. They've won
Yeah.
70% in the last 20
That's
years.
crazy.
And have had to play like some of the toughest games to get to the national championship.
Yeah.
Like the SEC isn't just, people really like to be like, it's top heavy. It's not top heavy. You think that because like you had Alabama and Georgia solely vying for a minute there for the national championship, but in all actuality, like just because those two programs were dominant doesn't mean that it was top heavy. It just means those two programs were that good and they were beating really good teams on their path to the national championship. So yeah, no, people, if you're not a fan of an SEC school, you tend to hate the SEC. And
I see.
you
Fair
know, it's
enough.
just like you hate greatness. It's okay.
Well, you know what? Okay, so two things to that. One, I see that you're an LSU alum. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm a huge Minnesota Vikings fan. So
Okay.
automatically, if I have to pick a team, I love LSU because of Justin
I
Jefferson. I
appreciate
think
that.
he's one of the greatest things to
the
ever
best.
grace the Minnesota Vikings organization. So I love LSU. I always have said, well, not always, I guess since 2020 when he became a Minnesota Viking. I'm like, LSU, yeah, that's my go-to college football school if I had to pick one.
Love it.
But yeah, these rivalries in college football. I mean, being a huge NFL fan, obviously there's some major
Right.
rivalries, but I'm pretty active on Twitter. And the college football rivalries on college football game day on Saturdays, I'm like, it gets pretty crazy. So does that kind of have to do with the conferences, would you say? Or are some rivalries
most-
just super deep rooted?
I would say some of the biggest rivalries are actually in conference.
Okay.
Like I would say some of the, like Alabama, Auburn. They're both in conference and they're in the same state. That's what
Okay.
makes it
Yeah.
such a big rivalry. Same with like
good
Ole Miss,
point.
Mississippi State. They hate each other because they're in the same state and they're fighting to like claim the state as their own.
Yeah.
So a lot of those rivalries are in conference and it's more so to prove like who is the most dominating school within your state. It's kind of like a state pride thing. I mean, Alabama Auburn is probably one of my favorite rivalries ever. We don't have a really big rival like that because we're a smaller state. So we don't have another university in our state that can compete with us at the level that like an Alabama and an Auburn can go at each other.
I see. Okay.
And so I always really enjoy watching the other schools go to war. And like Auburn has these trees on the corner of their campus that they roll when they win a game.
Okay.
Well, I don't, at this point in time, I was in elementary school, but this still lives in infamy. There was a guy, an Alabama fan, that got mad that Auburn won that game, and he poisoned the trees at the corner, which is illegal. It was a felony.
I was gonna say, I imagine he
And then
got
he
some sort of
called,
fine,
there
at
is
least.
a like notorious SEC like media show called the Paul Feinbaum Show, and Feinbaum is like the SEC guy. And he called the Feinbaum Show and admitted it on live TV that he was the one that poisoned the trees. And that's how far and how seriously we all take rivalries. And so.
Wow. Okay, I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, I mean, I've never even been to a college football game, and I would love to. I've been to Minnesota quite a few times, so I'm like, okay, I should definitely go to a Minnesota game. But just the atmosphere looks so incredible, and I mean, obviously I'm not gonna advocate for anybody poisoning trees, hurting any nature, any animal, any person even too. Like
Yeah.
we don't need to go that far, but I kind of love the drama of it all. Like just hearing that, I'm like, damn, okay, it's like a reality show almost a little bit.
No, it really is. I mean, I always say like every school has their great fans and then every school has their toxic fans. And I think that goes for any sport anywhere, like
Definitely.
NFL included. My best friend in the world is an Eagles fan, and Eagles fans have never been anything but kind to me.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'm not a diehard NFL, like a fan of a diehard NFL team, so they don't have any
Okay.
reason to hate me. Like, but I know that there are Eagles fans that are absolutely atrocious and mean, and like obviously a
Yeah.
video went viral like what 2 weeks ago of an Eagles fan being mean. So like I think every fan base has really great fans and every fan base has really negative fans.
Totally.
But it also is what makes like the atmosphere and the experience so great
Yeah.
is that we're so invested that, you know, like we're willing to go to the ends of the earth for our team.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like you absolutely love the game day experience.
Yes.
Just going through your TikTok, you're going to games all the time. Obviously, the season is over, and we'll touch on the championships that just recently occurred. But you have plans to go. Let me just correct me if I'm wrong. But you have plans to go to a game every single weekend when the season kicks back up again. Is that correct?
Yes. So,
Easy.
yeah. So for like 3 years in a row now, I've gone to quite a few.
Yeah.
This past year, I think, was my record. I think I hit 9, which in 14 weeks of
I was gonna
football
say the
is
season is a little bit shorter.
a good
Correct?
bit. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I've just kind of I've always wanted to do it. And I just
Yeah.
kind of was like, 2025 is the year I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
so I've started planning it out. And my dad's like, financially, like, how are you going to pull this off? And I was like, well, I'm going to start paying for like my Airbnbs now so
Yeah,
that
fair
like
enough.
as the time comes, it's not like all hitting me at once. Like we'll just
Totally.
gradually take care of it throughout the year. But yeah, I've planned every weekend of the 2025 college football season and where I'll be and what game I'll go to.
I love it. Are there any schools that you're going to that you haven't been to yet?
Oh, there's a ton. So I'm only repeating, I believe, 4 schools in the 14 weeks. And part of it is just like logistics wise, trying to be smart. I work a full time job. I work 8 to 5, Monday through Friday in an office. Taking off every Friday for 14 weeks is not feasible for me.
Yeah.
So, like, there are some games that are drivable distances. And obviously, if it's drivable, I've probably already done that game or that stadium. But I have to do it just in order to keep like the weeks cohesive.
Yeah.
There's only 2 weeks of the football season that I'll fly back to back games.
Okay.
Every other one is like fly, drive, fly, drive, fly, drive. So I maneuvered it specifically for that reason, but then I also did it to experience as many stadiums that I have not experienced as possible.
Oh my gosh, well, I can't wait to follow along then. That's so exciting.
I'm so excited.
Okay, well, then I guess that kind of leads into my next question then. How did your love of college football, I mean, obviously you went to LSU, so I can imagine that played a big role in it, but how did you get from growing up to now going to a game every single week of the season?
Yeah, so I grew up in Baton Rouge, so where LSU is. So I grew up going to games. I grew up around like the environment of LSU, and in Baton Rouge, like everything revolves around LSU.
Okay.
And so I always kind of knew I wanted to go there. And then my parents actually divorced when I was 15, and I moved away from Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And I think in those 3 years that I was gone, I was like, holy cow, I miss it so much. But I have, like, the football portion, I have almost always been like this. My dad said that he knew something was probably wrong when it was my freshman year homecoming dance. And I
Okay.
turned, like, 7 different boys down because I wanted to stay home because it was the LSU-Alabama game. And I was not about to miss the game.
Hilarious. That's iconic, honestly.
I've been like this for as long as I can remember. I've always loved just like there was something about like cuddling on the couch with my dad and watching games. Like that was our
Yeah.
thing. He was a basketball coach growing up, so I got him home a lot during football season, and then he was gone during basketball season. So watching games was like always kind of our thing. And now that I'm an adult, we've made it a trip every year. So every year we go on a dad-daughter trip and go to a different game to a stadium that we've never been to. And
I
that's just
love
like a tradition we started a
that.
few years ago, and
That's
we
so sweet.
love it. Yeah.
So have you planned out which game you guys are going to?
Yes,
next
we're
season?
going to Iowa. I believe it's Minnesota at Iowa.
Okay.
And that is because we've always wanted to wave at the kids and do the wave. There's like that hospital right next door, and so they wave to all the kids
Okay.
in the children's hospital.
That's
And that's like a part of pregame. They like say like everyone in the stadium turn, and so Dad and I have always really wanted to do that. And
Okay.
so when I reached out to him and was like, hey, I'm trying to plan my 2025 college football travel. And normally we plan our trip in like late summer so
Yeah.
that we know going into football season. And I was like, I need to plan it now because I have to build it into this schedule.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you okay with Iowa? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, great. So I picked it this year. So yeah, we're heading to Iowa and we're really excited about it.
I love that. And, I think that's something from what I've seen from afar and even just talking to you now that obviously I love the NFL. I'm obsessed with it. And there's so many little traditions, but I do feel like college football has the NFL beat in that sense of the the little traditions that each school does that are so unique and you don't even need to be a fan of that school. In fact, you can hate that school,
For
but
sure.
still really respect the little things that they do. So do you have any schools like the one that comes to mind? I mean, I always think of the Penn State whiteout game. And then what is the school that does the jump around?
I think that's Wisconsin.
I honestly
Wisconsin.
don't know. I have no idea. But
Wisconsin.
if anything, I thought I heard it got like canceled, that they can't do that anymore because
They'll
like
never do that.
the
No.
stadium.
I'm pretty sure it's Wisconsin. I'm 99.9% sure.
But
It's
like
not an SEC school, so I know that much.
that's hilarious. So do you have it? Are there any other schools traditions that you're like,
I
okay,
mean,
I
there's
can
so
respect
many.
it?
I am like, it's an unfortunate thing. And a fortunate thing is that if you ask any college football fan, they'll tell you that LSU on a Saturday night is like the number one go-to venue in college football.
Damn.
So I'm kind of spoiled in the fact that like that's what I grew up with, and I tend
Yeah.
to compare everything to that.
Fair enough.
And so, but every school has something special. LSU does, like Garth Brooks wrote a song called Call of Baton Rouge, and the whole stadium sings it. And then Auburn, they have a live eagle that circles the field. Like they release it and it circles the field and then it lands on the field, and they do that for pregame. That's always really cool. Alabama sings Dixieland Delight. That's always really fun. I mean, there's so many traditions. I have not been to a Penn State whiteout game. That is on the list. But I'm also limited in how many games I can do per year in certain stadiums because of my dad and I's list. He wants to go to a whiteout too, so
Okay.
I honor that is something that we want to do together. So like that won't be on the list for this year, but we want to experience a lot of the like major college football traditions.
Yeah.
That sandstorm at Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Just some like different things that we really want to experience, but those will have to go in later years just because I have more flexibility than he does.
I absolutely love that though. Like even and again, I'm so glad that I picked you for our guest for our first college football
I'm so
episode. I'm
excited.
sure there'll be more, but you can just like hear your passion and your love for college football. Like it's so apparent, it's so obvious, and I mean that's honestly kind of what Name a Player is about, is just giving women a chance to just exude their love for whatever sport it is in a very non-judgmental way. And actually this kind of leads us in to another question that I have for you. Your TikTok. You're posting on TikTok really all the time, daily, I would say, about your love for college football. And have you ever gotten any hate for that? Any
Oh.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just let you jump right in on
Yeah, pretty much every day. Like if I'm posting, I'm pretty much getting hate. I got hate today.
It's
Someone
10 a.m. Like
I just don't understand. I've tried as time has gone on to be. I'm not sensitive. I'm not a sensitive person. I understand that like everyone has their ideas and the things that they like. And I've always been of the mindset that like we can have differing opinions. If you respect my opinion, then I'll respect your opinion. Like that's just how it works. And so I get hate pretty frequently. I have some tough skin just because I worked in sports for quite some time. And so that really helped build the tough skin that I have because I am kind of at the point, like, I don't need to prove to anyone, man or woman. Like, I don't need to prove to anyone that I belong here and that I'm qualified to talk about this. Like, I know that I am. And so if someone disagrees with me, I try to be respectful. And then sometimes they respond respectfully and sometimes they don't. The person today did not. And so it just kind of is what it is, but it comes with the territory. Like, I have built my platform slowly and organically, and it's always just been like authentically me. It's never tried to be like gimmicky or anything like that. Like, just what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And I pride myself on that. And so if you don't agree, then like that's fine, but I'm not going to change who I am because you don't like it.
Well, I love that. And again, I just got to say, like, the authenticity genuinely does come across
Thank you.
as authentic. So that's amazing. And it is such a good point. It's like, these are your opinions. If somebody hates on you for your opinions, that's going to happen all the time. What's that quote? You can be the juiciest peach and somebody doesn't like peaches.
Yeah.
And that is something that, I mean, pretty well every woman who's come on here that has worked in sports has said that's unfortunately one of the first things that you're going to have to get comfortable with is getting hated on it and just accepting that, unfortunately, and being able to move on from it.
Without a doubt. I mean, at this point now, it's just like second nature. I'm just like, oh, you don't agree. Okay.
Well,
Move along.
it sucks, but I mean, good on you for having that attitude.
I try.
So let's rewind a little bit and talk about the most recent NCAA championships. How did you feel about that game?
I felt like I knew going in that Ohio State was going to win that game.
Okay.
Like and I feel like that was a pretty obvious consensus to everyone except Notre Dame fans, because they were convinced. I went to the Notre Dame Georgia game, so I went to a college football playoff game and watched Notre Dame play, and was impressed. And I thought that Marcus Freeman outcoached Kirby Smart, and that's not something you see every day. Georgia is, like, at this point in time, now that Nick Saban's retired, Georgia is the standard in the Southeastern Conference, and so to see a school that's not even in a conference beat Georgia was a little bit shocking.
Yeah.
We did find out later that there was a lot of personal stuff going on with Kirby Smart, and I'm not so sure that his head wasn't completely in the game. However, that's not an excuse. I don't make excuses for teams.
Mm-hmm.
If you are the best team in the SEC, then you should be able to handle anyone, and he didn't. So that's just what it is. But I remember looking at that Notre Dame team and being like, they're going to win the semifinals, but I actually tweeted it, and I had the tweet, like, bookmarked. And I tweeted and said, Ohio State is going to murder Notre Dame in the national championship. Like, I tweeted that before we knew who was in the national championship.
Okay.
I thought that Ohio State, like, they lost to Michigan really late in the season, and everyone really counted them out. Again, a rivalry game, like, where emotions are high and things that, like, would happen in a normal game aren't happening, and, like, vice versa.
Okay.
And so I remember, like, thinking, like, it's so idiotic to count them out. Like, they're still going to make the college football playoff. In fact, they almost had it better because losing to Michigan knocked them out of the Big Ten championship. So they didn't have to play Oregon again in the Big Ten championship, which would have been a more difficult game. Yeah. Instead, they got to sit at home, and then they got an easier path to the national championship because they didn't have to play in the Big Ten championship. Now, they still got the crappy side of the bracket, and they still had to play Oregon before the Natty, but they handled Oregon. When they won in the first round of the college football playoff, I was like, Ohio State's the national champion. Like, and it's not close. Mm-hmm. I personally thought, like, I don't always feel like the best team in college football wins the national championship. I do feel like that happened this year. Like, I do feel like Ohio State was the best team in college football. And let's be clear, they should have been. They paid $20 million for their roster, okay?
Yeah,
like, with the paying of players thing now, that was the best team money could buy. So, they should have won. And But I'm glad they did. I feel like they were the best team in college football. And I was glad Notre Dame made it a game at the end. Like, there was a national championship a few years ago between Georgia and TCU, and Georgia won, like, by 50 points. And I was like, bored.
Yeah, sometimes that's not as fun.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the time it's not as fun
at all. Like, I'm like, I want competitive games.
Yeah, you want to, be in it. You want to be invested.
Yeah, like, I want to be excited. And I remember even at halftime this year, I was like, oh no, like, is this game about to get away from Notre Dame? And they just hung in there and, like, kept playing. And so I was impressed with them. But I think at the core of any real college football fan's mind, you knew that this game was Ohio State's to lose.
Okay. Well, you said something interesting there, and before we hit record, I was just saying that I was looking into the playoff format and that it's a new playoff format this year, but even just the fact that a group of people, and actually I was going to say a group of men. I am curious, are there any women who
There are women, yes, there are women.
That is really good. I absolutely love to hear that. So a group of people sit and decide which teams make the playoffs, and I mean, I'm a huge Minnesota Vikings fan, so the fact that a 14-3 team was the number 5 seed, I don't necessarily agree with NFL seeding either, but I think that makes a little bit more sense.
Right.
But yeah, so tell me a bit about this playoff structure and how you feel about it and just kind of what the general consensus is about it.
Yeah, so it's 12 people. It's a rotating committee, so it does tend to change every year. And you have a chairman of the committee that I believe sits there for 2 years before he rotates out, or he or she rotates out. I struggle with the committee structure only because I think it's really hard to remove your biases. And like, for instance, the chairman of the committee this year was the athletic director of Michigan.
How can they even do that?
It's hard because you want people that know ball. Like, you want people that know football.
Yeah.
And you would like to think that an athletic director would know football.
Yeah.
But I've always said, like, one, I don't know if they're watching the same games that we're watching, but I remember it kind of went viral. There was a picture of everyone on the committee, like, ready to watch the conference championship games. Yeah. And they were all, like, in there just, like, in chairs and, like, all, like, stoic. And I was like, I would trust a bunch of drunk rednecks before I would trust these people to pick who belongs in the college football playoff. Like,
hilarious.
they don't even look like they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't love that. However, like, we have had a computerized, standardized system before. It was called the BCS. That changed in 2014 was the first college football playoff.
Okay.
And it was only 4 teams. So this was the first year that they went to 12. So it was quite the jump. I personally thought when they expanded that it should have gone to 8.
Yeah, that is quite a big jump.
It's quite a big jump. And there's talks now that it's actually going to expand to 16. In 2026, but I don't think that's confirmed. I think that's like, it's just in conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't love that there's humanity involved. And then on the flip side of that, you say, okay, well, if we still had the BCS structure, the national championship this year would have been Oregon, Georgia, both who lost in the college football playoff. So it's hard to say that the committee gets it wrong. Now, you're always going to have people that say that the committee gets it wrong because their teams get left out. And that's just part of the nature of it. There are parts of the playoff structure that I don't like that have nothing to do with the committee. For instance, the 4 teams that get byes are the 4 highest ranked conference champions.
Okay.
I hate that.
Okay.
And because I don't feel like it's completely fair. I think if you're going to give 4 byes, give them to the top 4 teams in college football. Like, let them show.
Fair enough. Yeah.
There's that. I don't like the auto bids. So auto bids for conference champions and then the highest rated group of 5 team. So for instance, Boise State was the highest rated group of 5 team. My issue with that is not even at Boise State. Ashton Jeanty was phenomenal. I could have really made a case for him winning the Heisman. But group of 5 teams do not have the financial backing that they're going to need to be able to compete with all of the teams that are in major conferences. So
interesting.
Every year that the highest ranked group of 5 team gets in the playoff, they pretty much, and I'm not going to say have no shot, but like have a 2% chance of winning a national championship.
Yeah.
And I just personally don't think that's fair to the group of 5. Like, this is me being for the group of 5. I think they need their own championship. Like, take them out of the playoff. On top of that, the auto bids for conference champions put Clemson in the college football playoff this year. Clemson did win the ACC, but they did not get one of the 4 byes because Boise State was ranked ahead of them.
Okay.
When you really look at the rankings, the committee still ranks the teams 1 through, they give the top 25.
Yeah.
Clemson was ranked 16th.
Okay.
So they weren't even one of the 12 best teams in college football, but they automatically got in the playoff because they won their conference.
Interesting. Okay.
If we want a playoff with the 12 best teams in college football, get the auto bids out of here. Like, they gotta go. In fact, this is literally what I made a video on this morning that one of the men was threatened and got mad at me. So I hate auto bids. I hate the auto buys. And I think the group of 5 needs their own playoff.
Well, that is so interesting too, because what you said, Ohio spent $20 million. Like, the financial aspect too, like, I didn't even really consider that. And that is something that too, as a Canadian, you do hear about the amount of money that just gets poured into some of these football teams. But
it really is. Like,
that
it's ridiculous, and anyone that really pays attention to sports in general hates the NCAA, and it's one thing that they've just really done so poorly was when they implemented NIL, which I'm pro NIL, I'm pro paying players with a cap. Like, the idea that an Ohio State team can spend $20 million and they're going to have to go play a team that, doesn't have that kind of financial capacity. Like, you're going to create such a gap in games. And that's one thing that, like, people are complaining about the SEC is, like, the SEC is whining because now schools are able to pay their players as much as the SEC was. And I don't know how to tell people that pay attention to just, like, the economy that statistically speaking, the South is poor. Okay? We've never paid $20 million for a roster on any one of our teams. I can promise you that much. Now, they were getting paid in other ways. For instance, Alabama's Nick Saban owned a car dealership, and he would give them cars.
Yeah.
This was before NIL was legal. Yeah. But the SEC has never spent that caliber of money on a team, ever. And they don't have the financial backing to. Like, you're trying to tell me that 2 schools in Mississippi are going to be able to afford a $20 million roster? Like, it's just not financially feasible. Crazy. The only schools that could probably compete at the, like, Ohio State, Michigan level, I would say, are the Texas schools because they have oil money. So University of Texas and Texas A&M both could probably do. I mean, Texas A&M is currently paying their ex-head coach $76 million to not coach their football team.
Oh my God.
So they have the money to do it, but not everyone in the SEC does.
I see. Okay, yeah, that is just so fascinating. And just, I mean, we're not going to get into wealth disparity and all of that kind of stuff,
But I mean, it's just like common sense tells you like it's just not going to be long term, and the NCAA isn't going to do their job, but they should and step in and say like we have to have a limit to how much you can spend.
Totally. And then I guess my next question too is, like you said, the owner, the car dealership, like giving the money, and obviously with the NFL too, like it does depend on the owners and how much money is going into individual teams, but the NFL also allocates the money for the teams. Does the NCAA do that, or is it just strictly the schools funding?
Just strictly the schools are funding.
Okay.
Now the NCAA has given money to schools based on like different contracts and like TV deals and things of that nature, but it's never enough to even like put a dime. Like just to give you a brief synopsis of this. So LSU, the number one quarterback in the country was committed to LSU, has been for years at this point in time. His name's Bryce Underwood. He's from Michigan. And everyone at the end of his recruitment, like coming up to signing day, was like, he's about to flip to Michigan. And everyone at LSU was like, no, he's not. Like, he's committed to LSU. Why would you, not to be rude, but like LSU has produced 2 quarterback Heisman winners in the last, 10 years. And Michigan has produced Tom Brady. And like, that's it. And he didn't even do anything in college. Like, why would you go there as a quarterback? And everyone's like, he's going to flip. And sure enough, he flipped. And then it came out that they paid him $8 million.
Oh my God.
To go to Michigan. And Brian Kelly and LSU were like, sorry, we're just not willing to pay you that much for an unproven product. Like, let's be clear. Like, you're paying $8 million for a quarterback. You don't even know if he's going to be good in college. Like, you have no idea. But they offered him such life-changing money. Now, he was from Michigan. Like, you should never have to pay a hometown kid $8 million to stay at your school. But you have to pull out like the biggest booster you could find to pay him so he would stay in your home state. Like, that's what we're dealing with in collegiate football at this moment.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm definitely going to have to tune in and follow this. Like I said,
it's wild. It is a reality show.
Yeah, no, I love that kind of stuff. And when you combine sports and the drama
Nicole, there is a Netflix
life
documentary coming out this summer on the Southeastern Conference.
Oh my God, stop.
So you'll be able to watch.
Okay, so I will definitely be tuning into that, and then I'll follow LSU. And I mean, it sounds like I need to kind of follow every team.
And the SEC as a whole is just really fun. I mean, I would not suggest following LSU. They'll break your heart. Like, they will.
Okay, well, I'm already, again, used to being a Minnesota Vikings fan.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Vikings. Here too. Obviously, they took Justin. One of my friends that I'm older, so like Daniil Hunter played for the Vikings for forever.
Yes.
He was my friend in college. Like when he went to the Vikings, we were.
Oh my God, I love Daniil Hunter.
Big fan of Daniil Hunter. My friend Tashawn Bauer, he was an outside linebacker. He played for the Vikings for a little while. So I've always kind of been like hoping the Vikings do really well.
I love that. I mean, you have the purple and the gold, and
it
just makes sense.
It's perfect.
Connect the two programs, so I absolutely love that.
It's perfect.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm already feeling so up to speed, and we've been chatting for 30 minutes, so thank you so much. But yeah, I'll definitely need to have you back on when the season starts to kick off and hear all about your finalized plans. I cannot wait.
I'm so excited.
A question, and I let you know about this before. I asked every guest this: the name of the podcast, name on player, and kind of like what you talked about. You know, when people piss you off, you kind of just gotta brush it off, laugh at it, move on from it. And when I was trying to think of a name for this podcast, I was like, you know what? I feel like that kind of just epitomizes it. Being asked to name on player, 3 players, 5 players, whatever it may be, and just laughing at it, because either you can get mad or you can move on from it and poke a little bit of fun at it. So I asked all the guests if they have any favorite times being asked to name one player on the sports teams that they love. Do you have any experiences with that?
Oh, I have so many experiences with that. My favorite one, it's like the most iconic one that I could ever tell anyone.
Okay.
I was in college. I was working for LSU football at the time, and I was dating an LSU football player, which was not, you were not allowed to do that. I was committing major NCAA violations at that point. But and he lived with like some of the most major names in LSU football at the time. Okay. So it is the summer, and I'm in batch because I have to work camps. Camps are coming up. But it was, I believe it was a Thursday night. Camp had either just ended or was just about to start. Either way, I'm out at a bar by myself waiting on my boyfriend and his friends that are also players to come to the bar.
Okay.
And I look over and I recognize a kid that was at our camp. Now, one, he's too
Okay.
young to be in the bar.
Yeah, I was just gonna
But
say, okay.
that's Louisiana in a nutshell for you.
Okay.
He's too young to be in the bar. And I'm also just like, okay, I'm not going to have a conversation with him. I'm going to have to see him when I work at camp. Like,
Right.
I'm going to have to do that. Well, he did not recognize me, which I'm not mad about because there were so many staffers at LSU football camps. Like, it's pretty much impossible. So he walks over and we're like talking or something. And I'm talking to the bartender. I know the bartender. And we're talking about camp. And then we're talking about like upcoming games and all this kinds of stuff.
Okay.
And this 17-year-old kid looks at me and goes, oh, do you think you know ball? And I was like,
oh, man.
I just kind of like looked at him for a second. And he was like,
Yeah.
I bet you don't know anyone. Like, I bet you don't know anyone or anything. And I was like, okay, all right, buddy. So I just sit there. I like continue my conversation with my friend, and I let this 17-year-old think he's hot and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And he's standing in the corner, and I call my boyfriend. I'm like, can you let me know when you're here, please? Because I want to, like, meet you at the door. And he was like, why? And so I told him what happened. He was like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. So I, like, tell him what happened. So him and all of his friends that are, like, major LSU players, like, when they walked in the bar, like, everyone turned because of who they were. So I like walked over and was like, hey babe, and like gave him a hug and like did the whole thing. And I turned to look and the 17-year-old's jaw was on the floor. He walked over to him after a few minutes had passed and I was like, would you like to ask me any more questions about what I do or do not know and who I do or do not know? He was like, I'm really, 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 really sorry. And I was fine. And I was like, I'll see you at camp though. And he was like,
literally.
He did not go to LSU, let's just say that.
That's what I was gonna say.
That's like grade was an F.
The epitome of that trend going on that don't impress me much. It's like this 17-year-old boy says to you, do you even know anything about LSU football? And then the next day you literally see him at camp.
Because, with like staff on my
shirt.
I'm like, no, I don't know anything. I'm clueless.
Oh my god, that is absolutely hilarious. I'm glad that you had that moment though.
Oh,
like that.
It's iconic. And now I don't even like think twice about it. I'm like, again, like I said it earlier in the show, I'm not in the business of like proving what or who I know to anyone.
Totally. And I mean, I feel like I say this literally every single story that any of the women who come on here give. There is that moment of like, being able to have that moment, seeing their face and being like, I actually do know my shit. But then it's also like, majority of the time, you don't even care. You know what you know. I know what I know. All these women know. We kind of have to give ourselves our validation because
without a doubt,
majority of the time we're not getting it elsewhere. So it's like, you need to know what you know. And it's like, why do we seek those moments of that approval, I guess, or that, I would say like vindication of them being like, okay, you have this. But then it's like, why? Who cares? We know it. You know it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think growing up as a coach's daughter really helped with that because I knew basketball because my dad was a basketball coach. And, you know, from like a very young age, I would be talking and people would be like, what is this child? Like, because I was literally a kid. Like, what does this child know about this? And I remember getting really frustrated one day after a game and getting in the car with my dad after one of his games. And I was like, Dad, I was trying to explain to someone like what you were doing on the defense. And I was like, and they told me I was dumb and like I didn't know what I was talking about. And so my dad was like, well, how did you explain it? He wanted to make sure that I was like really saying it correctly. And so I explained it. And then he was like, that was perfect. And then he was like, but you didn't need to like, he was like, you're young. And he's like, Joy, if you stay in this, like, it's going to be like this the rest of your life. And so you know that you knew that. And who are they? Like, you don't owe them an explanation. And so growing up, he really instilled that in me. And I think it's just stayed that way. Like, I was like that in college. I was like that when I worked in sports. I'm like that now on social media. It's just my validation doesn't come from what I know. It comes from who I am. And so I don't have to prove to you anything about me.
I absolutely love that. That's definitely going to be spliced into a little clip and posted on TikTok.
Perfect.
Well, Joy, thank you so much. That's all that I have for you. One, cannot wait for this Netflix docu-series.
Good.
I absolutely love, Wide Receiver with Justin Jefferson. That was just
so good.
Incredible. So I love that they're doing that and just such a great way to get new fans on board and just see a behind the scenes look at different things. So I will be tuning in and I'll definitely be looking at your reactions to it when it comes out. I'm
sure there will be many.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much to Joy for that episode, for coming on and for chatting with us. I had such a blast. That's for sure. I feel like I'm ready to take on college football. I'm ready to do a deep dive. I mean, especially with the NFL season so close to ending. What the hell else am I going to do with my time? I mean, I did decide that I'd get pretty invested in hockey. Being back in Vancouver, gonna let that consume my time. But, we might need to get locked in for this Southeastern Conference Netflix docuseries. I'm so excited for that. Are you kidding me? I can't wait. Like, oh, when does it come out? I'm gonna have to count down the days. Summertime. I mean, I'm always like this in the new year. It is January 26th today, and I'm kind of like, okay, mid-January or end of January. January's done, right? Then my birthday's in February, and February flies by. My birthday's end of February. If anybody wants to send me gifts, just let me know. Anyways, February flies by. March flies by, right? Done. Then April, that's pretty well the middle of the year, right? Like, so it's pretty well summertime damn soon, if you ask me. Summer's already almost here. I mean, I just looked outside. It's sunny again today. Vancouver's had such beautiful weather. It's pretty well summer. Right? But yeah, Joy, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so happy that I was able to learn what I did learn from you today. And everybody be sure to follow Joy. Her football takes are so great and, like we said, just so authentic. You get that right away from her. Like, this girl is herself and she's not afraid to be herself and she's not afraid to give her opinions, which I absolutely love. And I think her opinions personally are really great. I said last week, I feel like time just freaking flies. Also, by the way, I feel like last week, I mean, we recorded last week's episode on Sunday as well, and it feels like it's been like 2 days. Like, time is flying by. But I said last episode that these conclusions are so freaking awkward for me. I don't know how to say goodbye. I really don't have anything to ramble about. Yeah, I'm racking my brain. I guess just go Bills and go Commanders. And please pray that I don't have to put like a clown mask on when this episode is actually out. I'm not going to edit it out though. I'm not going to edit it out. I'm going to say it with my chest. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? I've been wrong many a times. I've said many a positive things about the Minnesota Vikings and then those came out and blew up in my face. So whatever happens, happens, but please, God, football gods, if you're listening, Bills, Commanders, Super Bowl. I'm begging. I'm begging. Anyways, that's enough for me today. I'm gonna go carry on with my day. And I hope you all have an incredible week. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everybody who reaches out and lets me know their feedback on the episodes on Spotify. There's the option to comment, so thank you to every single person who does that. If you're listening on YouTube, thank you so much for subscribing, liking the episode. Same with Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for rating the episodes. I genuinely, truly appreciate it. And if you haven't had a chance to interact with the show, maybe today's the day. Maybe today's the day that you like or rate or hit subscribe, hit follow, whatever the option is for you. Maybe today's that day. Maybe it's not. Maybe today's that day. But yeah, I hope you all love the episode. Again, thank you for listening. I guess that's all for me. I guess it's time to say goodbye. I'll miss you, but I'll be back next week. You're not getting rid of me. You're not getting rid of me anytime soon. Name one player. She's here to stay. All right, okay, now I'm done. Take care, everybody. Bye.